Welcome to Talk Tickers. You're tuning in for our deep dive into the latest from Pinterest, ticker PNS. We're digging into their recent earnings call.
That's right. And broadly speaking, it was a strong first quarter for them in 2025.
Okay, so let's get the headline numbers out first. What did they report?
Well, they hit a record 570 million global monthly active users. That's up a solid 10% year over year. And importantly, growth across all regions.
10% global MEU growth. Okay. And revenue.
Q1 revenue came in at $855 million. That's a 16% increase from last year. And they pointed to strong advertising performance really driving that.
And profitability. How did the margins look?
Adjusted EBITDA was $172 million. That gives them a 20% margin, which is actually up 300 basis points year over year. Pretty healthy.
Nice margin expansion. What about the outlook? What are they guiding for Q2?
Yeah, they gave preliminary Q2 guidance, revenue expected between $960 and $980 million. So that's looking like 12% to 15% year over year growth continuing.
Still double digits. Okay.
And for adjusted EBITDA in Q2, they're projecting somewhere in the range of $217 to $237 million. So overall, quite a positive picture painted in the call.
Definitely sounds like a solid start to their year. Let's dig into that user growth a bit more. 570 million MAUs, 10% growth. Where is that growth coming from?
It's pretty broad-based, actually. US and Canada grew 4%. Europe was up 5%, but the real standout was rest of world, up 14%.
Wow, 14% in rest of world. That suggests the international expansion is really paying off.
Absolutely. It looks like their efforts in newer markets are gaining significant traction. And something else, about 85% of those MAUs are using the mobile app directly.
85% on the app, that signals pretty high engagement, doesn't it? Users going straight to the source.
Exactly. It suggests a really sticky user base that prefers that dedicated Pinterest experience. That's quite valuable for investors to see.
But they called out Gen Z specifically, said it's their largest and fastest growing cohort. What's the appeal there?
Well, it seems to come down to Pinterest's core strength. Visual discovery. Gen Z, they've grown up visually online, right? And Pinterest is leaning heavily into visual search.
Powered by AI, I assume?
Oh, absolutely. They're doubling down on visual search capabilities this year, using enhanced multimodal AI models. They even claim their proprietary AI for this is about 30% more effective than leading off-the-shelf options.
30% more effective, that's a significant edge if true.
It really is. It helps them understand user intent much better, which is key for keeping that Gen Z audience engaged and, well, finding what they're looking for.
They mentioned a new flow for women's fashion using this multimodal approach. Can you break that down? What does multimodal mean here?
So think of it like the AI understanding multiple types of input at once, not just an image, not just text, but both together.
Okay.
So a user could upload a photo of, say, a dress, and then type in refinements like longer sleeves or different fabric. The AI gets both the visual and the text to give much sharper results.
And that helps find shoppable products, right?
Exactly. It makes the whole experience smoother for the user and, crucially, provides richer signals for advertisers. It connects discovery directly to potential purchase. It's a kind of win-win.
Right, which brings us nicely to monetization. How is this improved user experience translating into ad revenue? They talked about a flywheel.
Yeah, the flywheel concept is pretty central here. Basically, more user engagement means more data signals about what people are interested in.
Which feeds the ad algorithms.
Precisely. That data helps their AI serve more relevant ads. Advertisers see better results, higher click-through rates, more conversions, and so they spend more.
And that increased spend presumably helps Pinterest improve the platform further.
Yes, that's the idea. It completes the cycle. They even gave an example, a 4% lift in click-through rates on related pins just by using their knowledge graph embeddings. Basically, the AI understanding connections better.
And advertisers seem to be buying into this. They mentioned full funnel campaigns are performing really well.
That was a key point. Campaigns using both upper funnel, like brand awareness, and lower funnel objectives, like driving sales, are apparently seeing almost twice the conversion rates compared to single objective campaigns.
Twice the conversions. That's significant.
It really is. It suggests Pinterest is becoming a platform where brands can effectively nurture a customer from initial inspiration all the way to the final purchase, all within Pinterest itself.
We also heard about specific lower funnel tools gaining traction, things like direct links And Performance Plus, what's that?
Right, Performance Plus. It's essentially their AI-driven automation suite for advertisers. It simplifies things and optimizes performance. And the stat they shared was pretty stark. It outperforms traditional campaigns in 80% of their A/B tests.
80%. Okay, so it's working.
Seems like it. They highlighted a new feature within it, ROAS bidding, return on ad spend bidding. Pacsun apparently used it and saw a 3x higher ROAS. So the AI is actively trying to maximize advertiser value.
That's compelling. And another feature, image resizing within Performance Plus for shopping ads.
Yeah, it's still in beta, but they said it's showing a 6% improvement in click-through rates. Little tweaks driven by AI that add up.
It sounds like the US and Canada are furthest along in adopting these shopping tools, but international is catching up fast.
That's the story, yeah. It shows their playbook works. Catalog shopping ad revenue is growing much faster internationally than their overall revenue. So they're successfully exporting that lower funnel model to Europe and the rest of the world.
And using reseller partnerships to help with that.
Exactly. Expanding those partnerships helps them monetize markets they might not have reached effectively before. It's about broadening that base.
Of course, for advertisers to keep spending, they need to see the results. Measurement is key. What's Pinterest doing there?
They seem very focused on this. They're improving their own tools, like their Conversions API and using clean rooms for privacy-safe data sharing. But they're also partnering with third-party measurement firms like Northbeam and Triple Whale.
Giving advertisers more options and validation.
Right. It's about building trust and providing that reliable proof of performance, which is absolutely essential, especially for those lower funnel performance-focused budgets.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the macro picture. How are they framing the current economic environment?
They acknowledged it's, an evolving landscape, fluid, but they expressed confidence in their strategy, pointing to all these initiatives we've discussed: relevance, personalization, making the platform more actionable.
Did they mention any specific impacts?
They noted some small pockets of ad spend being affected by tariffs, particularly from certain Asia-based e-commerce players in the U.S. due to changes in the de minimis exemption rules. But some of those advertisers are apparently diversifying where they spend geographically.
So some minor headwinds, but the core business fundamentals feel strong to them.
That was the message. Their Q2 guidance range is maybe a touch wider than usual, reflecting that fluidity, but the underlying confidence seems to be there.
Let's dive into some of the financial mechanics. Ad impressions were way up 49%, but pricing was down 22%. What's driving that split?
This is mostly about that international growth we talked about. As more users and impressions come from regions that were previously unmonetized or had lower ad rates, the average price per ad naturally decreases.
Right, the mix shift.
Exactly. It's a mix shift effect. But the huge growth in impression volume, especially in those newer markets, is more than making up for the lower average price, driving overall revenue growth. It's a trade-off for scale.
Makes sense. What about costs? Cost of revenue and operating expenses were both up?
Yeah, cost of revenue up 10%. That's mainly infrastructure spend to support all those new users and the increased engagement. More activity costs more to run.
And OpEx?
OpEx up 12%, mostly driven by R&D. They're hiring more engineers, investing in AI and product development. That's their core investment area right now.
But margins still expanded despite the cost increases.
Yes, that adjusted EBITDA margin hit 20% at 300 basis points, as we said. They do expect full-year margin expansion for 2025, though perhaps not as much as they saw in 2024.
And they generated decent cash flow.
Very solid. $356 million in free cash flow for Q1. And they put some of that to work, buying back shares, $175 million worth in the quarter.
Reducing the share count.
Right. Combined with net share settlement, it led to a 2.2% year-over-year decline in their fully diluted share count. It signals confidence and returns value to shareholders.
It's interesting. They also highlighted growth beyond just retail advertising. What other areas are showing promise?
Yeah, they mentioned seeing good traction in verticals like financial services, tech, telecom, and even entertainment and streaming services.
Financial services? How does Pinterest fit there?
Well, think about the life moments people plan on Pinterest: weddings, buying a home, getting a car. These are often moments when people need new financial products, like loans or insurance. Advertisers are tapping into that intent.
Connecting life events to financial needs. Clever.
And advertisers in these other verticals also value the insights Pinterest has, especially into that Gen Z audience and emerging consumer trends.
Let's talk about third-party demand. How are they integrating ads from outside their own sales channels?
Their approach seems pretty measured. They see third-party demand as complementary, mainly to fill gaps in the ad auction, not replace their first-party efforts.
So it's not a free-for-all?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
They mentioned choosing Magnite, which is a major SSP or supply-side platform to help aggregate smaller demand sources. But they're not planning to scale with lots of other SSPs right now.
Taking it slow.
Yeah, they emphasize the integration takes time and isn't expected to cause a sudden jump in revenue. It's more of a gradual, strategic addition.
And all these pieces, the AI, the user experience, the ad tools, the measurement, it all seems to tie back to strengthening that full funnel advertising proposition.
I think that's exactly right. Performance Plus in particular seems to be key in making that full funnel promise a reality. Remember that 2x conversion lift for campaigns hitting both ends of the funnel?
Yeah, that was striking.
It highlights Pinterest's unique position. They can potentially engage a consumer from the earliest stages of inspiration right through to the transaction, all on one platform. That's powerful, especially, as they noted, when CMOs need to justify brand spend by showing performance outcomes.
So, looking at the competitive landscape, with AI evolving so fast everywhere, how does Pinterest see its unique edge?
They position themselves at this interesting intersection of search, social, and commerce. Their big differentiator, they argue, is their unique data set, all that visual curation data people have saved over years.
The pins themselves.
Exactly. Their proprietary AI models are trained specifically on that visual, commercially focused data. That's why they claim their visual search is more relevant than general purpose models for shopping and inspiration.
So it's not trying to be a general search engine, it's specifically visual commercial intent.
That seems to be the focus. And the fact that user growth and engagement remain strong, even with advances in general AI search, suggests users find unique value in that specific Pinterest experience.
All right, fascinating stuff. Now, let's pivot to our This Is Not Financial Advice segment, purely hypothetical. Based on this call, what's an outrageous but plausible trade idea that springs to mind?
Okay, here's a thought exercise. Given Pinterest's momentum in lower funnel ads, their Gen Z traction, and that international growth, maybe consider a pair trade. Long Pinterest,
Okay.
paired with a short position in, say, a legacy big box retailer, one that's maybe heavily reliant on physical stores, slower to adapt online, and perhaps struggling to connect with younger demographics.
Interesting contrast. What's the rationale behind pairing those two?
Well, the thesis is playing on the accelerating shift of ad dollars and consumer attention online, particularly towards platforms that demonstrably drive performance and resonate with younger consumers. Pinterest, with its AI tools and visual focus, seems well positioned there.
While the legacy retailer might face headwinds from that shift.
Potentially, yes. If they're heavily dependent on traditional foot traffic and finding it harder to capture online discovery and sales, especially from Gen Z, there could be divergence in their growth paths. This trade idea tries to capture that potential divergence.
Of course, this comes with plenty of risks, right?
Right.
It's purely speculative.
Absolutely. Huge risks. Pinterest's international monetization could stumble. The overall ad market could soften, hitting everyone. The legacy retailer might surprise everyone with a brilliant digital turnaround.
Right.
Market dynamics are complex. So this is strictly a hypothetical scenario for discussion. It is absolutely not a recommendation to trade. You have to do your own extensive research.
Understood loud and clear. Okay, that wraps up our deep dive into Pinterest's Q1 2025 earnings call. We've hit the key results, the user growth story, their evolving ad strategies powered by AI, and the outlook.
Yeah, the key takeaways really seem to be that focus on visual search with their unique AI, the increasing adoption and effectiveness of performance advertising, and that significant international expansion opportunity.
Lots to think about there. What are your thoughts on Pinterest's strategy? How crucial is visual search going to be for e-commerce moving forward? We'd love for you to join the conversation online.
And just to reiterate, this analysis was purely for informational purposes. It's not financial advice. Please always conduct your own thorough research before making any investment decisions.
Thanks for tuning in to Talk Tickers. We'll catch you on the next earnings deep dive.